Hello, and welcome once again to another fun-filled heretical episode of Inside the World of Mack's Headroom. Um, you know, Today I want to comment on the new sort of scandalous thing, the Hasbro Troll Doll grooming device. Uh, and I've been researching it for the last couple of days, and I have some interesting heretical thoughts to offer you about what the real purpose of this doll is. Um, Before I go on, let me try to just be sure that you understand that what I want to present is just part of a whole. Okay, if you've ever seen my show, you know I'm a systems thinker. You know that I believe that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So this is just one part of a whole. However, I think it's a really big part. And as a result, I want to comment on my particular theory about what this whole purpose of this doll is about. Uh, Second of all, you're going to hear me use the word grooming a lot because that's the language unto which it's been described in all of the videos and comments about it and stuff. Now, I just want to go on record, okay, as an old school sex offender therapist, that grooming is probably the worst fucking word that you can use to describe the process by which a sex offender lures an innocent child into a deviant act. And I just want to explain that for a while. I got to get it off my chest because I'm going to use the word grooming a lot, even though I don't like it, because it's the language that everybody's been talking about it in regards to, okay? But you see, grooming is a word that was created by academics. And academics have to find appropriate, language to frame the theoretical concepts that they're describing so that the academic world won't get grossed out or won't find it like unprofessional or something like that. So out of the academic community arose the word grooming. Now, the reason I have a problem with the word grooming is that it's way too fucking polite and politically correct. I mean, luring, conning, manipulating, uh, what have you, I think are much more appropriate words to describe the process, especially because, and please nobody take this wrong, but I think grooming or luring is probably one of the worst parts of the whole total of the sex abuse experience. Now, please nobody think that I'm undermining what the actual contact damage is, from being sexually abused. I understand that. But what I mean about grooming or luring kids into deviant acts is that that's where they learn not to trust. And that's where they learn that, adults are not like, a reliable backbone that they can rest themselves on. And then as that person evolves into an adult, they still carry with them this terrible distrust of people. And it's understood. I understand why. But why put a pretty name to describe the process of the whole sex abuse experience, which I would see as being at least equal to the physical damage in many cases because of the ramifications it has on the development of the personality in later life. Okay? So, yeah, I'm going to use the word grooming, but I had to get that off my chest. I think luring is a much more appropriate word. It's just hard for me to keep in context because so many of these videotapes and such have been using the word grooming, so I don't want to fall too out of sync with it, okay? Whew, I got that one off my chest. But I've been wanting to say that for a long time. Okay, so again, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that whatever I'm saying is not minimizing the impact or the importance of other parts of that whole. Please, don't think that I'm saying that it in itself isn't a grooming object, okay? But I'm going to present an angle on this that I think is pretty significant to consider when you're evaluating the atrocious, horrendous, nefarious use or production of this crazy doll. Okay? All right. So I get, oh, and also, I made a comment in a YouTube group, and I was so impressed with the comment that I wanted to use it as a reference here, and I hope I can, There we go. Okay, so I guess I can use it as some notes. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so I've researched this considerably, and everybody is kind of talking about it as being a grooming device unto itself. Like somehow children are going to use this and start positively associating something about the sound that comes out of the doll when its genitals are touched. Okay, now that way it may well be. So please, nobody think I'm saying anything to the contrary. Okay. However, hell with those notes, like they drive me crazy. What I really think this is more than anything is a arrogant, deviant assault on adults. Okay, see, I'm going to shift this a little bit. I'm saying that it's an awful meta message, a covert message, a message which is embedded within something else. Okay, I think that that's what this is about. And I also happen to believe, since it's produced by such a big company such as Hasbro, that there's something that has to do with the elites and all of their pedophilic antics. I mean, you can't dismiss the fact that Hasbro has to be part of the elite community. You know, you got to start there. How did this thing get out in the first place? Well, probably because somebody in Hasbro is part of the elites, and they somehow snuck this out into the public, okay? So I'm starting from that as a foundation, that this is an elitist attempt to do something, okay? To groom children, I'm not quite as convinced, although it may be another part of the whole. But what I think it is it's a blatant statement to adults that we as the ruling class and we as the pedophilic portion of that can just do as we please. And here's an example of it, because we're going to put a toy on the market that's going to blow your doors off and possibly put you in very embarrassing situations with your children. So it's kind of like saying, hey, everybody who's not an elitist, you know, we're here to stay. And there's nothing you can do about it, sucker, because look at the power we got to put a toy out on the market that's going to cause uproar. But it's a statement, you know, and it's a statement I also think that is loaded with the arrogance of the sort of like, well, for sure, elitist pedophile population, but also with a lot of the even middle-class pedophiles. You know, you see these groups like, you know, Mack and Pi and Nambla and all that, you know, malarkey. I mean, those groups have a brazenness. They have an arrogance. And that's what you see when you go on the dark web, or you go on the, you know, people that show you the dark web. You know, you get so mortified, and rightfully so, with the arrogance that's displayed by so many of these pedophilic individuals, but especially the ones from the ruling class, because they have the means to pull off the shit that they want to do. You follow? It's just a, you know, they can get away with that kind of stuff. If Jeff Epstein can get away with what he did for so long with all this bullshit, why wouldn't elitists be existing in Hasbro, which is one of the biggest toy companies I can ever remember? I mean, they were around when I was a kid. That was like 60 years ago. And so there have to be elitists in there. It could not have, you know, it is not just an innocent thing by any means. But I really think that it's a statement that is directed to the parents of children. Like, we're here to stay, motherfuckers, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. Which is the same rhetoric that you see when you go on the dark web and read these crazy chat groups of chomos where they're, you know, just so brazenly talking about this crazy shit. I need to take a deep breath there. But I really think it's about that. And I want to try, this is not just an opinion, I want to try to pragmatize this so that you can see what I'm talking about, okay? Because that doll could be used in like 3 or 4 different ways. It could be considered, like, there's, no, let me put it this way. There's like 3 or 4 scenarios that I could see this doll, you know, entering into the lives of innocent families, okay? One would be if the parent and the child were playing with the toy unaware of the secret button, and the button gets pushed. And then the parent has to explain something about sexuality to a kid who's too young to be, in that position. But is any right parent going to go into a deep explanation? Or is any decent parent just going to say, I'm getting this toy the fuck out of my house? Sorry, I'll buy you something else, a computer game. But this doll, I don't like it. And sometimes adults make decisions for kids that they don't like, period. But it puts the parent in an incredibly uncomfortable situation if indeed they're playing with it together and the button is pushed. There has to be some kind of explanation. Or it's just an awkward way. It's just a way of saying, fuck you, we're going to do what we want. Ha ha, look at that, the doll that makes orgasmic sounds. So it's again directed toward the adult more, okay? Another possible scenario is that the kid is playing with the doll, him or herself, okay? And they push the button. Well, if you have a relatively stable family and a kid is like kind of curious about something that happened, they're going to come to the parent and say, look what happens when you why does that happen? Again, the adult is put in a curious situation, right? Similarly, there's another option, and that is if the parent, I don't want to say has the sense, because this is really a covert, sleazy thing that Hasbro pulled off, okay? But, the other possibility is that the parent has, the foresight to say, hey, I'm giving my doll this toy, but let me just examine it first. And then the parent is mortified. Oh, my God, look at what's going on in this world. How did this happen? And again, the pedophiles are going, fuck you, ha, 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 hee, 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 look what we can do. So, and I specifically put this onto the elitist pedophiles because I don't think the working class pedophiles have the money to pull this shit off, right? Now, there's one other possibility if you want to think of this as a grooming tool, but that gets pretty devious, and I would think that it would have found its way through underground channels as opposed to being put out on, the open market as it did, and that would be the following. If indeed you had a pedophilic family, which does exist, that is a reality, okay? And they wanted to start grooming their child from a very young age, to start asking questions about why that doll does that, and then they can show them the reality of what happens when you touch that part of the body on them. So then I would think it would be, a grooming device. But I can't see that getting put out on, the open market to feed a select group of demented individuals, which is a somewhat small population compared to all pedophiles, these pedophilic families. But, or perhaps, a babysitter pedophile or child care pedophile who might want to use that doll to find an excuse to start touching a child's genitalia. That's a possibility. But then that's a toy, or not a toy, I mean, that's a grooming device, a child luring device that would have to be in the hands of a pedophilic individual before it could actually be used for grooming. You see what I'm trying to say? Now, please, nobody bomb me in the comment section, although I doubt that'll happen because I've only got now 147 subscribers. But nonetheless, I just don't want to offend anybody. I don't want anybody to say, oh, you're minimizing, like with the grooming comment. I don't want anybody to minimize saying that grooming is just as bad as the actual physical act of being sexually abused. I just think it's a really horrendous aspect of it, I'm not talking about anything in absolutes here. But if you look at those choices that I just laid out to you, that I could just use in my imagination as to how that doll would be employed, the only people that really could use it as a grooming, or I hate that word so fucking much, I'm sorry. Maybe that's the most important message in this whole video, is grooming is a really stupid way of referring to a horrible, trust-destroying practice that's part of the pedophilic experience. But anyway, that's my axe to grind. But I just wanted to dispel this, that I really believe that the purpose of this whole video is sort of like a practical joke, a sicko, demented, deviant practical joke that is being played on adults more than kids. I'm not saying it can't be used for kids, but I am saying that, it's a devious, demented, sicko way that the elites are bringing their cloaks and robes into your living room. That to me is what it's about. Can a child, somehow get groomed by, into deviant sexual acts or masturbation or something like that just by pushing the button and making the sound go off? In normal families, I highly doubt it. But that doesn't minimize the despicability of the way that Hasbro and its elite brothers and sisters of deviant imbeciles were able to use money, power, control. Because I'll bet you that this doesn't go very much further than YouTube. You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to make its way much to the mainstream media, except for like, what are those little, what do they call them? Op-eds, I think they're called. Those little short things. And it's so funny too that the Hasbro response was, well, we don't know how it got there, but we're taking it off the market. Well, that in and of itself is sort of like a fuck you to everybody else. Like, well, we can get away with it. We don't know how it happened. I mean, it's totally and absolutely ridiculous. But they will get away with it. I can only hope that nobody will ever buy the fucking product. And if, I hope that parents will, it's easy for me to say because my kid's 35, okay? But, toys are, that old Marshall McLuhan expression I always use, the medium is the message. Well, toys are a magnificent medium to reach kids on a multitude of levels, not only sexual levels, but I mean on a multitude of levels. As a matter of fact, in the old days, before family therapy came around, how did they used to treat children? It was called play therapy, okay? And hopefully the play therapist was using the play for the right reasons and not becoming part of that group of knuckleheads that are sexually deviant. But, it was the standard thing, play therapy. Why? Because the medium that you communicate to children with is play. So with kids that are too young and having all kinds of problems, we used to do play therapy. I always hated doing it, but nonetheless, I was forced into it early in my career for a while. But it definitely exists. Play is the language of children. Toys are the medium, that carry the message. Whether they're guns, that's a cute one too, right? Toy guns. That's a little weird when everybody or most liberals are against, are for handgun control, whatever the fuck it is. But anyway, I think I've said enough. I hope you get my point. In summary, I really believe this thing is an elitist message to adults to say, we're here to stay, ha ha ha, fuck you, and put you in an embarrassing situation with your child. That's what I think one of the big parts of the whole is. Unless, as I said before, that pedophiles were hoping, maybe Hasbro was hoping to arm pedophiles with toys that they could use in childcare positions, babysitting, etc., where they could then use that doll to groom a child, because it very well could be used to groom a child. That's very clear, but it would have to be in the hands of a deviant individual, not just sporadically or idiosyncratically figured out by a little kid. Hopefully they go to their parents. Hopefully their parents would have the right response, which is, let's just get this toy the fuck out of the house. Sometimes there's things that parents do that kids don't like, and I'm sorry, I'll buy you a new toy. But again, I'm not trying to minimize anything. It's a sicko, wacko thing. I'm just trying to point out that it's run by the elite pedophiles, in my humble opinion, and that it's directed toward moms and dads more than kids. Take it for what it's worth. It's just an opinion. And with that, I bid you adieu. So thank you very much for being with me in another fun-filled heretical episode of Inside the World of Mack's Headroom.